I never meant to become the guy who locks up a cemetery at night. I was 22, broke, and living in the kind of town where nothing happened unless it was bad. The cemetery job came from my uncle, who worked for the city. He told me it was easy money: walk the grounds near sundown, make sure nobody's drinking or doing drugs behind the mausoleums, close the gate, and go home. He didn't mention the whistling. The first week, I didn't hear anything unusual. Just the normal sounds you'd expect when the sun is going down: cicadas buzzing, the wind pushing through the tall trees, the occasional car passing on the road beyond the stone wall. But on Friday, as the light drained out of the sky and the shadows got longer, I heard it. A soft, slow whistle. Like someone was trying to call a dog without waking a sleeping baby. It came from deeper in the cemetery. Not near the road, far back, where the older graves were. The part nobody visited. The headstones back there were darker and older, some of them leaning, with names you couldn't read unless you stood right over them. I stopped walking and listened. The whistle didn't stop. It didn't change either. It was steady, like it was meant for me. I told myself it was probably a person. Maybe some kid hiding, messing around. The cemetery was a popular dare spot. Teenagers liked to sneak in at night, take pictures, tell each other ghost stories, make out in their cars. So I called out, "Hey! Cemetery's closing. If you're back there, you need to leave." No answer. Just that whistle. I walked toward it, my boots crunching on the gravel path. The air felt colder the farther I went, even though it was still summer. That back section of the cemetery sat lower, like a bull. The trees grew thicker, blocking the last of the daylight. The whistling kept coming, but it never sounded closer. It was like it stayed the same distance away no matter how much I walked. Then I saw something that made me slow down. A small white shape between two headstones. Like a piece of paper caught in the grass. As I got closer, I realized it was a ribbon. One of those thin white ribbons you see tied to flowers at funerals, now dirty and damp, trailing from a bouquet that looked like it had been there for a long time. The odd thing was, the ribbon was moving. Not from wind. The air was still. It was twitching, like someone was gently tugging it. I stared at it for a second too long, and my brain did what brains do when they don't want to panic. It tried to explain it. A bug? A mouse. Something under the flowers. Then the whistling stopped. The silence after it was heavy. Like the cemetery itself had leaned in to listen. I suddenly felt stupid standing back there alone, and I turned to go back toward the gate. As soon as I turned, the whistling started again, this time behind me. I froze. I didn't turn around right away. I just listened, trying to judge how close it was. It sounded like it was right behind my shoulder, like if I turned my head I'd see someone standing there with their lips pursed. I forced myself to spin around. Nobody. Just rows of stones, dark grass, and the crooked silhouettes of trees. But the whistling was still there, just everywhere. It didn't echo like a normal sound. It didn't bounce. It just existed, like it was inside my ears. I walked faster. Not running, but quick. My heartbeat was loud enough that it felt like it might drown out the whistle. Then I heard a second sound. Footsteps. Not mine. Behind mine. Someone was matching me. Perfectly. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I started again. The footsteps started again. I couldn't see anyone, but I could hear the weight of them, the soft press of something moving over grass and gravel. It sounded barefoot. I tried to keep my voice calm when I said, "All right, that's not funny. Cemeteries closed. You need to leave now." Nothing answered. But the whistling changed. It became a tune. 3 notes that rose and fell, like a lullaby. It was familiar, but I couldn't place it. It sent this crawling feeling up the back of my neck, like my body recognized it before my mind did. I kept walking, almost jogging now, going straight for the main path. The light was nearly gone. The cemetery lamps were spaced too far apart, so everything between them turned into dark gaps. That's when I saw a man standing by a headstone near the path. At first I was relieved. Finally, a person. He wore a long dark coat that looked wrong for the weather. He was facing the stone, head bowed like he was reading the name. I called, "Sir! We're closing. I need you to head out." He didn't move. I stepped closer, and my stomach tightened. Something about him felt flat, like the way a mannequin stands. "Sir?" I said again, louder. His head tilted slightly, like he'd heard me. Then he whistled. Just one sharp note. And immediately, right behind me, I heard that barefoot step again, close enough that I felt the grass bend. I turned so fast I nearly fell. Nothing. When I looked back at the man, he was no longer facing the stone. He was facing me. And even in the dim light, I could tell his mouth wasn't whistling. His lips were closed. The whistle was coming from somewhere else. It was coming from the grave beside him. A headstone that leaned forward like it was tired. I backed away without thinking. My heel caught the edge of the path, and I stumbled. The man took one step toward me. Not fast. Not chasing. Just certain. I heard a whispering sound in the grass all around me, like something moving through it. Too many small movements at once. My brain started screaming at me to run. So I did. I ran toward the lights, toward the gate, my flashlight bouncing wildly in my hand. I didn't look back. I just listened, and what I heard was worse than footsteps. I heard whistling. Not one whistle. Dozens. All different, coming from every direction, forming a weird chorus that followed me. And mixed into that chorus, I heard something else. Breathing. Hard and wet. Like something had been buried too long, and wasn't meant to breathe air again. I hit the main road section of the cemetery, and almost crashed into the big angel statue near the entrance. The gates were still open, and beyond them I could see the streetlights and the normal world. I didn't stop until I was outside, slamming the gate shut behind me. I yanked the padlock on, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. I stood there panting, staring through the bars. At first, I saw nothing moving. Then, between 2 rows of stones near the front, I saw the man. He was standing perfectly still, the same long coat, the same bowed head, except now he wasn't looking at a headstone. He was looking straight at me. And the whistling drifted out from the cemetery like smoke. I got in my car and drove away with my headlights off for half a block because my hands were too unsteady to turn them on. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I went to my uncle and told him everything. He listened without interrupting, which made my stomach drop, because it meant he wasn't surprised. When I finished, he nodded once and said, "You heard it." "H heard what?" I asked. He leaned back and rubbed his face. "The Whistler." "What is that?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You ever notice the oldest section? The stones that don't have families coming anymore?" "Yeah. There was a caretaker back in the day. he said. Before cameras. Before gates. He'd catch people sneaking in. Kids. Drunks. People messing with graves. My throat felt dry. Okay. He'd whistle. That was his thing. People said if you heard him whistle, you'd better leave. Because if he had to walk up to you, he'd make sure you didn't come back. I tried to laugh. It came out weak. So what, he was like some psycho? My uncle's eyes didn't look amused. He got buried there. A cold prickled across my arms. He died in the cemetery. My uncle continued. Collapsed in the back. They found him days later. And some people swear, when they lowered him into the ground, they heard whistling from inside the coffin. I stared at him. You're messing with me. I'm not, he said. And listen to me, if you hear it again, don't go looking. Lock up and leave. I should have quit then. But I needed the money. So the next evening, I went back. I told myself it was just a story. A local legend. Something to scare new hires. I walked the grounds with my flashlight, my keys, and my jaw clenched tight. The sun went down. The trees grew darker. And for a while, nothing happened. I started to relax. Then, from the old section, a soft whistle floated through the air. My heart sank. My feet stopped on their own. The whistle came again, closer, like it was calling me by name. I swallowed and did what my uncle said. I turned toward the front. That's when I noticed something I hadn't noticed before. Every cemetery lamp along the main path was off. All of them. The cemetery had gone dark in one breath. The only light was my flashlight, and the pale glow of the sky. I walked faster toward the gate. And behind me, those bare footsteps matched mine. Perfectly. Then a voice, low and calm, spoke right beside my ear. Don't run. That's rude. I whipped around, flashlight slicing the dark. Nobody. But the sound of whistling wasn't behind me anymore. It was coming from inside my own throat. I felt my mouth form the shape without my permission. Felt the air being pulled and pushed. I clamped my lips shut. The whistle stopped. Then, across the cemetery, far back in the old section, I saw movement, like a shadow standing up out of the grass. And I understood something in that moment that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. The whistling wasn't just a warning. It was a leash. And every time I heard it, something inside me had answered. I ran. I didn't stop until I was in my car, doors locked, engine screaming. As I sped away, I heard a faint whistle inside the car, like it had followed me. When I got home, I stood in my bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror. And without thinking, without meaning to, I whistled that same 3-note lullaby. I haven't worked in a cemetery since. But sometimes, when it's late and the house is quiet, I'll be lying in bed, almost asleep, and I'll hear a soft whistle in the dark. Not outside. Not down the hall. Right inside my own chest. Like something buried in me is trying to find its way out. My friend Daniel was the kind of person who always had a side job. If there was a way to make extra money, he'd find it. Fixing phones, delivering groceries, cleaning out garages, whatever. So when he told me he got hired to help a cemetery crew, I wasn't surprised. They're behind on headstones and repairs, he said. They just need extra hands. Easy. I joked. In a cemetery? That's a hard pass. He laughed. You're such a baby. A week later, he wasn't laughing. He showed up at my apartment late at night looking pale, like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes kept darting to my hallway, like he expected someone to walk out of it. I said, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" He hesitated. "Can I crash here tonight?" "What happened?" He rubbed his face hard. "Just, can I?" I let him in, made coffee even though it was almost midnight. He sat on my couch with his hands clasped like he was praying. Then he told me what happened. The cemetery he worked at wasn't the pretty kind with neat rows and shiny plaques. It was old, overgrown in spots, with mausoleums that looked like little stone houses for the dead. His crew was supposed to fix a section in the back where the ground had sunk and a few graves had shifted. The boss told them it was from heavy rain and time. Nothing weird. Daniel said the first day was normal. Shovels, dirt, sweat, joking around to make it less creepy. The second day, they hit something under the soil that didn't feel like a coffin. It was hard and flat like stone. The boss climbed into the hole to look and frowned. "That's not supposed to be there." They dug more carefully, clearing dirt away until they uncovered the edge of a slab. It looked like poured concrete, but older, cracked in places. The boss muttered, "That's a cap." "A what?" Daniel asked. "A grave cap," the boss said. "Old style. They'd pour these over the coffin." Daniel shrugged. "So?" The boss didn't answer. He just looked uneasy. They kept digging. The deeper they went, the more wrong it felt. The soil was damp and cold. The air smelled like wet rock. Then Daniel's shovel hit something else. Not stone. Wood. He said the sound made everyone stop. That hollow thunk. "Coffin?" someone asked. The boss climbed down again, and they brushed the dirt away until they found the top of a wooden lid. But it wasn't like modern coffins. It was rough, almost homemade, with iron nails. And this is the part Daniel kept repeating like he couldn't believe it. There were scratches on the lid. Long gouges. Like someone had clawed at it from the inside. One of the guys made a nervous joke, something about zombies. Nobody laughed. The boss cleared his throat. "We're not opening it." "But it's in the way," Daniel said. "We're not opening it," the boss repeated firmer. They covered it back up for the day and moved to another spot. But Daniel said he couldn't stop thinking about it. The scratches. The idea of something trying to get out. That night, Daniel had a dream. He was standing in the cemetery hole, staring at the coffin. The lid started to bow upward, like something was pushing from inside. The nails creaked. Then a voice whispered, right in his ear, "Finish it." He woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning, he came to work and found the crew already gathered around the hole. The boss looked angry. "What's going on?" Daniel asked. The boss pointed at the dirt. "Someone dug here last night." Daniel stepped closer and felt his stomach flip. The soil they'd packed back down was disturbed. There were handprints pressed into it, like someone had crawled around in the mud. The boss asked everyone, "Any of you come back here?" They all swore they hadn't. Daniel said the boss forced a laugh. "Probably kids. This place attracts idiots." But the boss's eyes kept darting toward the woods. They started digging again, faster now, like they wanted it done. The coffin appeared again, scratched lid and all. Then Daniel noticed something else. There was a second set of scratches. Fresh ones. The wood looked splintered in places like fingernails had dug in recently. Daniel pointed. That wasn't there yesterday. The boss stared at it and went quiet. Then he said, We're sealing it. What does that mean? Daniel asked. It means we're finishing what someone started, the boss said, voice tight. We're pouring a new cap. Daniel didn't like how he said it. Like it wasn't a repair job anymore. Like it was a ritual. They mixed concrete in a wheelbarrow. The boss insisted they pour it right away, even though it wasn't scheduled. He kept checking his watch, like he was racing a clock. While they worked, Daniel said he felt watched. Not by people. By something that didn't blink. The cemetery was quiet, but in that back section, the air didn't move. The trees looked still, like a pause video. When the concrete was ready, they poured it over the coffin lid and smoothed it out. As the wet concrete spread, Daniel swore he saw something push up beneath it, a slow bulge, like a hand rising under a bedsheet. He jerked back. Did you see that? One of the guys laughed too loudly. You're freaking yourself out. But the boss's face was pale. He pressed the trowel down harder. Keep going. Daniel said the concrete started to settle, and then, from beneath it, came a sound. A muffled knock. 3 slow knocks. Like someone tapping from inside a wall. Everyone froze. Then the knocks came again, harder this time, and the concrete rippled. Daniel whispered, What the hell? The boss snapped. Don't stop. They kept smoothing it, pressing it down, trying to pretend it wasn't happening. Then the knocking stopped. And after a moment, a voice whispered up from the ground. It was faint, like hearing someone talk through thick dirt. But Daniel heard the words clearly enough to repeat them to me, his voice shaking. Finish it, or I'll finish you. Daniel said the boss stood up so fast he almost fell backward. He backed away from the grave hole with his hands raised like he expected something to jump out. Then the boss looked at Daniel. You! Go to the truck and get the barrier tape. Now. Daniel ran to the truck. He said his legs felt numb, like he wasn't connected to them. When he got back, the crew had already started packing dirt over the concrete cap. Like they were burying the whole incident. Daniel handed over the tape, and that's when he saw it. A footprint in the wet concrete. Right in the center of the cap. Barefoot. Toes and all. Fresh. Deep, like something had stepped up from below. Daniel said he backed away. Nope. Nope. I'm done. The boss snapped at him. Get a grip. Daniel didn't. He walked away from the hole, toward the main path, breathing hard. That's when he heard the sound that made him come to my apartment later. Behind him, from the grave, came the soft scrape of nails against concrete. Slow and patient. Like someone testing a door. Daniel finished the day in a daze. The crew acted normal, but nobody joked anymore. The boss avoided looking at that section. When Daniel got home that night, he tried to forget it. Tried to tell himself it was stress hearing things. Then, around 2 a.m., he heard tapping on his bedroom wall. 3 slow knocks. He sat up, heart racing. The knocks came again, same rhythm. He got out of bed, thinking maybe it was a neighbor, pipes something. He pressed his ear to the wall. And he heard a whisper through it. Finish it. Daniel said he didn't sleep after that. The next day, he quit the job. He didn't even go back for his last paycheck. He just texted the boss. I'm done. The boss replied with one message. You shouldn't have listened. That night, Daniel said he started hearing scraping sounds under his apartment floor. Not like rats. Like fingers dragging slowly across wood. Then came the knocking. 3 knocks. Over and over. He tried turning on music. The knocking stayed. He tried leaving the lights on. The knocking stayed. He tried sitting in his car outside the building until sunrise. The knocking followed him, faint, but there, like it was inside his skull. When he came to me, he looked like he was breaking. Maybe it's just in your head, I said carefully. Daniel stared at me. Then why does my floor have cracks? He showed me his phone. A picture of his apartment floor. Right in the middle of his living room, a thin crack had appeared in the wood, like something had pushed up from beneath. And on either side of that crack, scratches. Long gouges. Like fingernails trying to pry it open. He stayed at my place that night. I didn't hear anything. Not knocking, not scraping. But when we woke up, Daniel's face was gray. He held out his arm. There were 3 bruises on his wrist, like fingerprints. And on his palm, written in dark, wet-looking dirt, was one word. Finish. Daniel moved out of that apartment within the week. He left town, stayed with family, tried to start over. But months later, I got a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. It was Daniel. His voice sounded distant, like he was calling from far away. All day, he whispered. I hear it under me. Under the ground. Knocking. Always 3 times. Then he paused, breathing shakily. And now I know why. The last thing he said, barely audible, was, They never finished my grave. The call ended. I called back. The number didn't work. I haven't heard from him since. But sometimes, late at night, when my apartment is quiet and the city sounds fade, I swear I hear it. 3 slow knocks. From somewhere deep below my floor. When my grandmother died, my family picked a cemetery on the edge of town because it was peaceful. It was one of those places with a small chapel, clean gravel paths, and big old trees that made shade even in summer. The kind of cemetery where birds sing too loudly, and you feel like you should whisper even when you're outside. The funeral was simple. I remember the smell of flowers and that thick, hot air that makes your dress shirt stick to your back. After the service, people stood around in little groups and talked quietly. Some cried. Some stared at the ground. I mostly just wanted to go home. That's when I noticed the woman. She stood near a row of headstones a short distance away. She wasn't with my family, and she wasn't dressed like the other mourners. No bright colors, no fancy funeral outfit. She wore an old gray coat, even though it was warm. Her hair hung down like it hadn't been brushed. And she was staring at us like she was trying to remember something. At first, I figured she was attending another funeral, or maybe she just wandered over. But then she lifted her hand and waved at me. Not a friendly wave. Not, "Hello?" It was slow and stiff. Like she was signaling me to come closer. I looked around, expecting someone else to notice. Nobody did. Everyone was too busy hugging and saying goodbye. I told myself to ignore it. I turned away and helped carry a flower arrangement to the car. When I looked back, the woman was gone. A few days later, I returned to the cemetery alone. My mom asked me to drop off a small photo frame and place it by Grandma's grave. She said it made her feel better, like a piece of home was with her. I went near sunset. The cemetery was almost empty. The air smelled like grass and stone, and the sound of the wind through the leaves made everything feel far away. I found Grandma's grave, set the frame down, and stood there for a while. I didn't pray. I didn't have the words. I just stood and listened to the quiet. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw the same woman from the funeral. She stood on the path, hands at her sides, watching me. My stomach tightened. Hi. She didn't respond. Her eyes looked dull, like they weren't focusing right. She took a slow step forward. I tried again. Can I help you? Her mouth moved, but no sound came out at first. Then, in a whisper so soft I barely heard it, she said, "He's waiting." I frowned. "Who?" The woman tilted her head. "He's waiting for you." A cold ripple ran through my arms. "I don't know what you mean." She stared at the ground beside Grandma's grave, then at me again. "You stood too close." "What?" She lifted her hand again and pointed, not at Grandma's headstone, but at the empty patch of grass beside it. "You stood too close," she repeated, like she was warning me. Before I could ask what she meant, she turned and walked away down the path. I should have left. I should have gone back to my car and driven home. But something about her made me follow. Not because I wanted to. Because I felt like if I didn't, something worse would happen. Like the warning wasn't done yet. I kept a distance, watching her move between headstones. She didn't look back. She walked like she knew exactly where she was going. She led me to the older part of the cemetery, the section where the stones were darker and the names were worn. She stopped in front of a grave that looked forgotten. No flowers. No fresh dirt. Just a cracked stone with a name I couldn't read. She stood there, motionless. I cleared my throat. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Slowly, she turned her face toward me. And for the first time, I saw what was wrong with it. Her skin looked too tight across her cheeks, like it had dried out. Her lips were pale and slightly cracked. Her eyes, they were open too wide, like she didn't blink often enough. She whispered, "He waits under new grief." I swallowed hard. "Who is he?" She pointed at the grave again. "He listens when the living cry." I stared at the stone. "Is someone buried here?" She nodded once. "He doesn't sleep. He just holds." A laugh tried to climb out of my throat, the kind people do when they're scared and don't know what else to do. It never made it out. Because from beneath the grass, I felt something. A vibration. Very faint. Like the ground was humming. I stepped back fast. "What is that?" The woman leaned closer to the grave, like she was listening. "He hears you now." I turned and started walking away. Not running, but fast. I kept telling myself it was nothing. Old pipes. Maybe a pump system. Anything. Then I heard her call after me. "Don't go home yet." I stopped without meaning to. The tone of her voice was different. Not whispering. Not distant. It sounded normal. I turned. She was standing straight now, shoulders back, her face less slack. And she smiled. It wasn't comforting. It was like she was proud. "He likes you," she said softly. I felt my heart thumping in my throat. "Leave me alone." She took one step toward me. "You brought something. A picture." My stomach dropped. I had told her nothing about the frame. "How do you know that?" I demanded. Her smile widened just a little. "Because he smelled it." I backed away. "Who are you?" Her eyes flicked toward the newer graves, toward where my grandmother was. And her smile vanished. "I'm the one who stayed." Then she turned and walked away again, but this time, she didn't take the path. She walked between headstones, straight through the grass, toward the far fence where the trees were thick. I stood there shaking, debating if I should chase her or run. I chose run. I went back to my car fast, got in, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. As I pulled out, I glanced in my rearview mirror. And I saw her. Standing behind my car. Just watching me drive away. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured that forgotten grave and that humming feeling under the soil. Around 3 a.m., I heard something outside my bedroom window. A soft tap. Like a fingernail. I sat up frozen. Tap, tap, tap. I slowly pulled the curtain back. There was nobody outside. Just the dark yard. Then, on the glass, fogged by my breath, a shape appeared. A handprint. Pressed from the outside. My blood ran cold because the night was warm. There shouldn't have been any fog. And the handprint looked wrong. The fingers were too long. I jumped back and turned the light on. The handprint vanished. But on my windowsill, inside the room, there was dirt. Dark, damp dirt, like it had been dug up. I didn't go back to the cemetery for weeks. My mom eventually went, and she told me the frame was gone. She assumed someone stole it. But she also said something else. She said the grass beside Grandma's grave looked disturbed. Like someone had been kneeling there. Like something had been dragged. I told myself she was imagining it. Then one evening, my mom called me, voice shaking. "I went today," she whispered. "I saw someone by Mom's grave." I asked, "Who?" She paused. "A woman. In a gray coat." My stomach clenched. My mom continued. "She was standing right beside the stone, just staring down at it." I called out. She didn't answer. Then she bent down and she touched the ground, like she was petting something. I gripped the phone. "Did she look at you?" "Yes," my mom said, and her voice cracked. "And she smiled like she knew me." That night, I dreamed of the cemetery. In my dream, I stood at Grandma's grave, but the headstone was gone. In its place was a dark hole in the ground, deep and waiting. From inside it, I heard humming. A low vibration. Then a voice, warm and patient, whispered up at me. "New grief is soft soil." I woke up choking on fear, my sheets tangled around me. And on my bedside table, where I always keep my keys and wallet, there was a little pile of dirt. Fresh. As if someone had brought the cemetery home with them. I moved not long after that. But I still think about the woman in the gray coat. Sometimes, when I pass a graveyard in daylight, I'll glance in without meaning to, just a quick look. And every once in a while, I'll see someone standing among the stones, watching the road. A gray coat. Unbrushed hair. A slow, stiff wave. Like she's still there. Like she never left. And like something under the ground is still listening, waiting for the next person who stands too close. I took the night shift at a cemetery because I thought it would be quiet. I was wrong. It started after my breakup. I needed a job fast, and a private cemetery outside the city was hiring a night watchman. The manager told me it was mostly to stop vandalism, people sneaking in, breaking stones, spray painting mausoleums. "Just patrol," he said. "Make sure the gates are locked." Call the cops if you see anything. I asked if anything weird ever happened. He gave me a smile that didn't reach his eyes and said, "It's a cemetery. Weird is the job description." My first 2 nights were boring. Cold air, flashlight beams sliding over headstones, the crunch of gravel under my boots. I saw deer once. I saw a stray cat. Then the third night, I saw the lantern. It was deep in the cemetery, near a small family plot surrounded by iron fencing. I noticed a warm glow moving between stones, like someone walking with an old-fashioned lamp. I stopped and called out, "Hey! Cemetery's closed!" The glow paused. Then it started moving again, faster, deeper into the cemetery. My stomach tightened. Trespasser. Maybe someone trying to steal something. People do weird stuff for metal, for money, for thrill. I followed. The lantern light bobbed ahead of me, never too far, like it wanted me to keep up. As I walked, the air felt different. Heavier. My flashlight seemed dimmer, like it couldn't cut through the dark the way it did before. I finally rounded a row of stones and saw the person holding the lantern. A man. He wore a dark suit that looked soaked, like he just climbed out of a river. The lantern hung from his hand, lighting his face from below. His skin looked pale and shiny in the warm glow. His eyes were shadowed. I said, trying to sound firm, "Sir, you can't be in here. You need to come with me to the gate." He didn't respond. He lifted the lantern slightly, as if showing it to me. Then he spoke in a voice like wet gravel. "You're late." I blinked. "What?" He tilted his head. "They always come on time." I swallowed. "Who's they?" His mouth moved like he was smiling, but his eyes didn't change. "The ones who replace you." I felt a chill run through me. "I'm calling the police." I raised my radio. Static. I tried again. Nothing but a hiss. My phone showed no service, even though I'd had bars earlier. I backed up slowly. "Listen, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to leave." The man lifted the lantern again. The light flared brighter. And suddenly I saw what was around him. Dozens of people. Not standing like normal people. They were scattered between the headstones, motionless, facing the man like an audience. Their faces were gray in the lantern light. Their mouths were slightly open. Their eyes were fixed forward. And none of them blinked. My throat went tight. I forced out, "Oh my God!" The man's voice stayed calm. "You see them now." I took a step back. My boot hit something soft. I looked down. It was a bouquet of flowers, crushed in the grass. And beside it was a small metal nameplate from a grave marker. It had a name on it. My name. My full name. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd been punched. I whispered, That's not possible." The man stepped forward, lantern swinging slightly. "It's already written." I stumbled backward, eyes darting to the crowd of still people. None of them moved. But I heard something. A slow inhale. Like 100 lungs taking breath at the same time. Then, in unison, the crowd whispered. Not loud. Not screaming. Just a soft layered sound that crawled into my ears. "Stay." I turned and ran. I didn't care where I was going. I ran through rows of stones, nearly tripping, my flashlight beam bouncing. The cemetery seemed bigger than it had during the day. The paths twisted wrong. Behind me, I heard the lantern's glass clink softly as the man followed. Not running. Walking. always walking. And the whispers followed too, drifting through the graves like wind. Stay, stay, stay. I reached a stone wall I didn't recognize. I slammed my hands against it, searching for an opening. There should have been a path. A gate. Something. But there was only wall and trees. My breath came out in white bursts. I spun around, flashlight up. The man stood 10 feet away, lantern held calmly. Behind him, the motionless crowd had shifted. They were closer now, filling the spaces between headstones like water rising. I shouted, "Back off!" The man's expression didn't change. "You're standing on someone." I froze. "What?" He nodded downward. My eyes dropped to the grass at my feet. The ground was slightly raised, like a shallow mound. A grave. I took a shaky step away. And from beneath the mound I felt it, again, that faint vibration. Like something humming. Then the mound moved. Just a little. Like something under it had turned over. The whispering got louder, not with volume, but with closeness. It felt like mouths were near my ears. The lantern man spoke softly. "Night shift is lonely. That's why we keep you." "I'm leaving," I rasped. He nodded as if agreeing. "No. You're staying." I bolted in the opposite direction, not even looking where I was going. And suddenly, the trees opened up and I saw the gate. The main gate. Black iron, tall, with the road beyond it. Relief hit me so hard my eyes burned. I sprinted toward it. The gate was locked, of course, but I had the key ring. I fumbled through the keys, hands shaking. Behind me, the whispering rose. I heard the lantern glass clink closer. I jammed a key into the lock. Wrong key. I tried another. My hands were slipping. I could feel something behind me now, not touching, but near enough that the air felt colder. I tried another key. It turned. The padlock snapped open. I yanked the gate and shoved it, squeezing through the gap. The moment I stepped onto the road, the whispering stopped like someone hit mute. I spun around. The gate was still open. The cemetery beyond it was dark and quiet, as normal as any place full of graves could look at night. No crowd. No lantern. No man. Just stones and trees. I didn't go back in. I left the gate open and walked backward down the road until I hit my car. I got in and drove straight home. The next day, I went to the manager and quit. He didn't argue. He just sighed, like he'd expected it. "You saw the lantern," he said. I stared at him. "You knew?" He leaned forward. "Night watchmen don't last here." "Why?" I demanded. "What is that?" He looked tired. "Some say it's an old groundskeeper. Died on the job. Some say it's something older than the cemetery itself. But everyone agrees on one thing." He paused. "If it shows you your name," he said quietly, "it's already started." I left his office with my skin buzzing, like I was still hearing whispers. That night I tried to sleep. I kept telling myself it was panic, exhaustion, imagination. Then, around midnight, my bedroom grew cold. Not normal cold. The kind of cold that feels damp. I opened my eyes and saw a warm glow in the corner of my room. A lantern. Swaying gently, as if held by someone standing just out of reach of the light. I couldn't move. My body felt pinned. Then the lantern swung slightly, and I saw the man's face in the glow. Wet suit. Pale skin. Shadowed eyes. He spoke softly, like we were continuing a conversation. You left the gate open. My throat wouldn't work. He tilted his head. That's not how you end a shift. And from the darkness behind him, I heard the soft layered whisper of many mouths. Stay. The lantern light brightened, filling my room. I tried to scream. But all that came out was a whisper, like my voice belonged to someone else. And in that whisper I heard my own words, spoken without meaning to. I'm staying. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.